it was Clarity, the album Clarity. Dino brought it. He goes, when you can do this, you're good. And it's exactly what he said. So I studied the album and I developed my harmonies from there on.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was the Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, feel free to support the podcast if you've been listening for a while by signing up for my Patreon over at patreon.com/thiswasthescene for $1 a month. And yes, I will love you forever. So the Dharma Boys were a Jersey local band back in the late 90s, and there's like nothing that I can find online that's written up about them, which is so interesting doing these interviews, because when I do intros, sometimes there's like no fucking info out there, or it's like a sentence. But I decided to do this instead. So Nuno, who was in A Wilhelm Scream and originally in Smack and Isaiah, as soon as I posted the teaser on my Instagram, which is instagram.com/thiswasthescene, or just go look up This Was the Scene if you're not following, I posted this, and Nuno was like the last person I thought was going to comment on this, but he wrote, "Holy shit, 3 exclamation points. I loved the Dharma Boys. Heart eye, smiley face, and 3 praise icons." And I wrote, "I was definitely not expecting that comment from you since they were a local Jersey band." And then he replied, "We did shows with them. Their album Red Rover was on, or the way I think he's meant to say it was, the album with them and Red Rover was on repeat in their van for years after." And I said, I'll let Jay know that from Red Rover that he'll dig that, and then Antonio and Scott, obviously. And then he wrote again, "Dude, no fucking joke. I've spent the last 2 to 3 days listening to their records on SoundCloud nonstop. How do they not make $1 billion? Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. If you see those dudes or whatever, tell them I sweat their songs. Capital hard, period, still, period, all caps. Can't wait to hear the new eppy." So Nuno is very excited for this episode. And it starts off with Scott and Antonio, and then Scott had to leave early, so it's just me and Antonio for the rest of it, but it's a lot of fun. So luckily, when I reached out to Antonio through Facebook and asked him if he wanted to do this, he said yes. And he said, let's bring the rest of the band in. And I said, well, let's limit this to 2 of you, because if there was 4 of you, it'd be a fucking shit show. And he agreed. So I got him and Scott on the Skype, and this is what we talk about. The current demise of the NJ Diners, Sound Exchange in Wayne, New Jersey, the start of Hinchcraft Studios, his thoughts on reunion shows, his brief stint with Parkour, playing in the band Copperpot, his latest band Reality Suite, SUITE, and a ton more. 2 other ways you can support the podcast before I jump in. 1, you could donate one time by just going to thiswasthescene.com. Scroll down, there's a purple button, and you can click on it, and you can donate whatever you want. 2, you could buy merch over at thiswasthescene.com. Now, I'm going to start doing limited releases on shirts, and I want to focus on cities and states where the scene was. So I've been asking questions on my Instagram, and people have been answering. And I have a t-shirt up that's focused on Philly right now, and I have one that I'm working on for Chicago will be the next one. And I also have one that's kind of like a funny one. It's like a dude on a Peloton, and it says, "This is now the scene." So that's going to drop, as the kids say, pretty soon. So pay attention by signing up for my email over at thiswasthescene.com. You can get first glance or first to know when there's going to be a t-shirt drop. And I'm probably going to limit these to anywhere between like 10 or 20 releases, depending on how well I think they'll do. If I don't think they're really going to sell that much, I'm probably going to limit them to 5. But if you want to be first to know, go sign up for my email. And then after that email goes out, then you know, like the rest of the people who are following will see it on Instagram and Facebook. And that's about it. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. There's like nothing that I can find out there. No information about you guys. There's the Dharma Bums.
That's Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, it was like based on his book or like a character or whatever. I don't know. I was never a big Kerouac reader, but there's like nothing other. But there is, you have tracks on the NJPP SoundCloud, and I was listening to Linden Flower, and that song was fucking awesome. Like I was just like going back, and that song like holds up. There's like some recordings from back 20 years ago with punk bands and they had their demos and you're like some of the songs really don't carry, but I was listening to the song, I was like, this is really fucking good, and like the harmonies were solid and it's a really catchy song. So I just I just made a note of that because I was like, I really like the song, so I wanted to just tell you that.
So at some point, Mike, I'm probably going to try to archive some of our music somewhere where it's readily available to people. I mean, surprisingly, we still have CDs. We still have shirts.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow, you have shirts?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
You should post that in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I could actually. I could.
Yeah, I mean that's like the direct audience who would be your first.
Yeah. So the Dharma Boys
Purchase.
was Scott will do the history on the Dharma Boys. Maybe that plays a role why you haven't heard of us.
No,
Why do I have to do history?
I've heard of you. I remember playing with you guys. I just
okay.
there's just like nothing. Yeah, we used to like see each other at shows all the time back then, especially.
Okay.
Red
I
Rover
thought
and
you
all
didn't
that.
know. I'm sorry.
No. Like I just try to find anything online of. I mean, I typically don't do like a lot of research before talking because it was bands that I loved from back then or knew of. But I sometimes will have a couple tabs open. The only thing I could find was for Copperpot, and it's on allmusic.com, and that was basically it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of well, I don't know plenty, but there's Copperpot relics.
There's stuff archived with them up until about 2007.
Yeah, and it's on Spotify too. It's like
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 albums. Well, one full length. Wait, 2 full lengths, an EP, a Christmas song, Warm Christmas. Was that like?
That was after us.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he recorded some crap after us, after Ant and I.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that too. But yeah, man. So I mean, basically, just like structure this where we kind of just go back in time and talk about how you got involved in the scene and talk with the band and forming and playing shows, any like stories and good or bad. I'm not here to dig out any dirt, but if you guys want to unleash any, it's totally fine with me.
That's cool, man.
And you said that you hadn't talked to the guys in like a decade or something?
Well, the Dharma Boys, we broke up right around in 2001.
May 2001.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it wasn't like on bad terms or anything. It was just, everybody kind of withered away and the tectonic plates, found their own countries.
Okay. So wait, is this the first time the two of you have spoken?
No. We stay in touch. Dino, the guitarist, he's busy. He does his own thing, I guess.
Yeah.
He dabbles with music here and there, but not really as much as me and Scott. We've done that much more than he did. And Anthony chose a different path.
Well, because you guys were a 3-piece, right?
4.
And then, so I was confused. Now, you did backups and played bass, or
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were the singer for so many years.
No,
Okay,
no.
And then, well, then Scott, you played drums, right?
Yeah, and that's all I did. I was the drummer.
Okay. Are you guys both up in Jersey now, or where you guys living?
Yeah, we're all in Jersey, actually.
Yeah.
None of us have moved out of this crazy state at the moment. But yeah, no, we've all stayed here. It still is the most wonderful state in all of the country.
Oh my God.
Yes,
It is.
That's
it is wonderful.
Yeah, that's why I live in North Carolina now. The weather's way fucking better.
Yeah.
So I did an interview with Jay from Red Rover, and we were talking about, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I'm going to structure it. But we were talking about there was an apartment in Fairfield or something. It was like someone's apartment where there was always parties at. Was that yours, Ant, or was that
Cameron's house.
Cam's? Okay. That was
No,
great.
he's talking about Fairfield. I don't recall anything at Fairfield.
I don't know if Fairfield. Like I'm kind of like Fairfield just for some reason popped into my brain, but it was like Montclair or something by Wayne or something. There was some apartment that we used to like at the end of the show people would go and party at. I think it was Cam's. I mean, it was literally an interview I just did 6 months ago or something. I totally forgot what he said.
Well,
but
yeah, Cameron definitely had a couple of gatherings at his place, which was always stellar. I mean, it was so much fun over there.
A lot of bands crashed at his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason I just thought like I always saw you as kind of like the mayor sometimes of shows where
And the diner. Yeah.
yeah, like you kind of it seemed like you were kind of like creating the gatherings, or you were always just very well known. That's my remembrance, I guess.
I definitely left a thumbprint.
Yes,
You
because
know what he did a lot?
I would love
I'm
to know.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, go for it, man.
You know what it was with Ant too is that he ran sound for the shows.
Yes.
So besides, recording bands and running sound, he was like the only one with like a really good PA system, and he knew how to work it. And so, I mean, that's how we were able to meet a lot of people and get on a lot of bills and trade shows and whatnot. So it was definitely, but like Ant, Jesus, since we were in diapers, man. I mean, like you were always like, the outgoing guy. He really was like the mayor of North Jersey back in the day.
Yeah, he just walk around with that giant like shit-eating grin on, and
Yep, that's about right.
I love the things like how you remember things from back then and just like what you associate it with.
Well,
So
it's
yeah,
it's funny. It was just Ant has probably archived, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of pictures, and from different bands and different shows and whatnot, and just going through them over the years, from like the late '90s all up through like the mid 2000s. Unbelievable the amount of people we knew,
Yeah.
and like you bump into like 10, 15 years down the road.
Or never see again.
Or never see again. I mean, there are people who fall off the face of the earth you never see again, or there's people like Gerard, the poster boy for early 2000s.
like Gerard, like Mike Hem Gerard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait, you bumped into him around Jersey?
Oh yeah, we've numerous times we've been to the diner, Six Brothers Diner particularly.
Yeah. Before
Honestly,
Mike Hem.
Yeah. I didn't see anything great about the guy, but every time we showed up, I didn't know that My Chemical Romance didn't exist yet or something.
No, they started in 2001. Actually.
But there was always like a good amount of people like, kind of rummaging around him and talking to him for no reason. And I'm like, well, that's so odd.
But yeah, but I mean, like Ann had these pictures of him, and there must have been like what 2000, 2001.
I was well, ironically, I was in the diner doing my thing, becoming the mayor.
Yep.
And I'm walking around introducing my cell phone. Now, I know this is going to sound really bizarre, but in 2000, was it 2001? 2001. I think it was 2001. I had a cell phone. It was a Samsung Uproar. And this particular model was the very first phone ever to be able to play as an MP3 player. It had an built-in MP3 player. And that, today that just sounds like so,
Yeah.
But at the time it was a very big deal. It was even before phone with camera phones or video phones. Like it was the new technology. It had 64 megabytes of RAM. Yeah.
You know what I'm going to say right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
And still thinks mini disc is going to make a comeback. That was his thing. Mini disc. Get it. Greatest thing.
Better than cassettes. So I walked around getting to the point here.
Yeah.
Walked around the diner, and everybody's crowded around him and said, "Hey, you want to see something really cool about my cell phone?" And he's like, "I guess." So I put the headphones on his head, and he's listening to, I don't even know what was on there, to be honest with you. It might have been Copperpot. I have no idea. But he marveled it, and then someone took a picture of him with my phone. I have that picture somewhere. I think it was kind of bizarre in itself, but yeah. So that was that's our meetup, I guess.
What I was thinking, what you were saying is that you were friends with him back then, but it was like a one time.
We bumped into him. I don't know.
He was always there.
Where was that diner? Where was that located?
Six Brothers just recently closed up, but it's located at one of the entrance from Route 46 to Montclair State University. It's like kind of in a little weird nook. Well, now a weird nook. It used to be right at the entrance, but they just revamped the entire area where you can't even see the diner, and due to COVID, they just closed up. So
Was that the one that was like right before the bridge on the. It was a parking lot right on 46, or I'm thinking, or is that the one on 3?
No, you're. It's right at the entrance to. It's on 46 East, right at the right. You can get right onto what the hell's it called? Montclair State University.
Yeah.
You can get right to the ramp that goes right up to the college, right there.
Okay.
And it's got an enormous parking lot.
Yes.
It's right before the McDonald's.
Yep. Yeah, I know exactly where that is. It's amazing, like what fucking diners that you remember. Or I mean, the biggest one would be TikTok. That was always like a
Which
big one.
That just closed.
Did it really?
Well, it didn't close yet. It's like in its demise, basically. All the diners are having trouble staying open, basically. You know, and it sucks because New Jersey's known for the 24-hour diners. I mean,
I know.
It doesn't matter what time it is. You just meet up and hang out, have a cup of coffee, and you know.
Remember when you used to be able to smoke and drink coffee in a diner?
Absolutely.
Oh hell
I
yeah!
miss it so much.
Well, that's why we would all do. We'd sit there and just smoke like cigarettes for hours and order nothing.
And it was like the only one who didn't smoke.
And ordered.
And order, yeah. You're like, I actually ordered and tipped, and
I used to eat at the diner. I'm not kidding. At one point I've gone to the diner to eat food every single day, like full-fledged, food, to the point where like every week they would give me like one whole meal for free or something stupid like that. It's like I like had like priority card or something. I don't know. It's funny.
That was like back then, or that's recent?
Yeah, no, that's back then, of course.
I haven't been to one of those. I haven't been to a diner in fucking forever.
Ah,
like, I wonder, like it. Yeah, like the people. I wonder if people are like still. I don't know. They still like meet up because that's always like the meetup point.
It's hard to say for this whole year.
I mean, yeah. Now it's completely.
But aside from that, yeah, absolutely.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Well, you guys. So just kind of jump back a second. So Scott, you said you guys have known each other since diapers, but was that just like were you joking, or have you guys actually known each other for a really long time?
No, we grew up in the same hometown. He's a couple years older than me. But,
so grade school, technically,
Yeah.
like third, fourth, fifth grade.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What town was that?
North Holidan.
What the fuck is
North
that?
Halden.
North Halden.
Halden. North Halden.
For people who are not in the area, remotely close to the area, everybody calls it North Holidan, but it's actually North Halden.
Sounds more proper that way.
It's by Patterson.
So you guys grew up there, and then all right. So let's kind of like talk about how you guys got involved in the scene. Like, was it because you were playing in a band, or you just ended up going to a show and then created the band?
Okay, so it was a snowball effect. The scene pretty much started in early 94, 96. Okay.
Depends on who you talk to. Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It was kind of low key, really low key at the time. You had people who were hardcore fans that just showed up to any show. They didn't care if they liked the band or not. They just showed up. It was great. You could be in a hardcore band. You could be a shoegazer band. It could have been anything, and people would dig you some way or another. Or not. I don't know. What's the matter?
No, it's just shoegazer. I always hated that term. I always thought, and I asked Ant one time, and he's just like, well, it's just like, I'm like, never mind. I don't even want to fucking know.
Wait, I don't even know what the hell that is. What the hell is a shoegazer?
So it's like really, really fucking like, I hate using the term emo, but like.
It's emo.
It's emo. And you never look at the band. You just stare at your fucking feet the entire time.
Yes.
So shoegazer music is literally like a little more somber, avant-garde, very lengthy. And shoegazer is you cross your arms and you stare at your shoes, nodding your head. Just digging the music is what it is, but it just has a certain look to it.
Yeah. I feel like people did that but I feel like people did that in general though. If you look at photos where before people really knew the band, they'd always have their arms folded, kind of like impress me.
Yeah, exactly. That always drove me nuts because you'd see that, and then you'd see something crazy like fucking agnostic front at CBGB's where everybody's like slitting each other's throats in the front row, and I'm like, that's a show.
Well, I think that's when you knew you made it though, is when they unfolded their arms and they're pointing their fingers back at you and singing your lyrics.
Absolutely.
Oh come on, dude.
Good shit.
No,
right?
that was good. That was really good. I hate you, Mike.
Why?
No, that was a really good point.
You struck a chord.
That was like, but it's those small things that you remember from back then. Because for all these episodes, there's always little things. Like the episode before this, we were talking about the shirts you'd buy from the Salvation Army, and they'd have to be witty, or they'd be super tight, or like super gigantic. And then if you saw someone from across the room and you read their shirt and you kind of gave them or if you had a shirt on, they would read it from across the room, kind of give you a nod, like that was pretty good. And you're like, oh, yeah, I've won the day with this shirt.
True. It's so funny too, because talking about this whole scene thing is like how, like, as Dharma Boys, like I remember like we started out doing covers, actually, and writing really basic stuff, I guess. Well, Ant was always a little bit ahead of his time, but in any case, no. And what always the pinnacle of the scene, I felt like, and I have to bring this up because it's something I'll never forget, was in 1999 seeing Jimmy Eat World at the Wayne Firehouse. Yeah. That was like the greatest, biggest show like we had ever had in our area, I think, at a firehouse, like at a hall. Right. Yeah. And I was just like, shit, because then like what, year and a half later, boom, they're everywhere. Yeah. But otherwise, earlier was like Midtown. I guess was like the big. Yeah. It was one of the big bands out of the scene.
Another big band, well, I thought was pretty heavy hitter, was Juliana Theory. They played at the Wayne Firehouse.
Yeah, they played. That's been a story that's come up like a bunch of times where I feel so bad talking about it too, because I would like to have Brett on the show, and I remember like just talking shit about him because he unplugged Random Tasks mics and their guitars.
Oh shit!
And like Evan came up to me and told me that, and then we went on, and I just kind of said something. I didn't give it to him. I said something, I don't even remember what it was. It was like, oh, we're going to be up here, like, make sure no one fucking unplugs us while we're fucking playing. Like, something like that. And the story has made its rounds because it's funny to reminisce, because I was like, I'll talk about just being just shitty, dickish things I would say back then. But that show, and then someone apparently on another podcast just brought that up to him. I didn't get a chance to hear it because I would love to hear his perspective on it. But yeah, like they've come up a couple times. Like I just talked to Jeff Kish, who was in Weston and Digger and Dawson High, and he was like, they're really good friends with those guys. Yeah, I'm just kind of going all over the place with this, but yeah, like I think kind of how you said how Midtown was the big band. Yeah, I think there was definitely this like handful of bands that were popular and that weren't like not on a label, but they still would just get the crowd going. And people would come out of the woodwork to fucking see them and shit like that.
Or it was anyone of what's his name, Ricky.
Yeah,
Ricky Simpson. Yeah,
any
Bomb Shelter Ricky
was the Bomb Shelter.
Yep. I heard I think someone said that Jimmy Eat World show. Someone asked Jim about it in a podcast episode recently, and he was like talking about it, like remembering.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
very cool.
Remember Zach, the drummer, it's back in the day when he had those handheld, like the big camcorder, and he was going like, there were kids lined up for like, Jesus Christ, the line was like hundreds of people long, 1,000, and he was just walking through the crowd with like his camcorder. And I remember it was funny seeing him there because we had seen them 5 years before that at Brownies in New York City. When Brownies, Jesus Christ, that was 94. Holy shit, that was still there. And it was the first time I ever heard of Jimmy Eat World. And Static Prevails had just come out. Wow. It's like maybe it was in 94 or 95. Yeah. And and seeing them there. And it was packed then. And just seeing that show in 99, holy crap. But that's funny you bring that up, that he actually referenced that. And wow.
Someone, I think, asked him about that, or it was the Skaters World show where the Get Up Kids play with them, and he was like, oh yeah, like they remember that shit, because that time period, because bringing up Static Prevails, it kind of triggered a question too, and I haven't really brought expanded on like you guys getting the scene and all that, but I think this kind of goes with it. Like Static Prevails, that was when that came out that time, and like that and Clarity. And then like Bleed Americans, where it started to change, and like Futures. Then after that, it just started. They went off in a different. I feel like they went off in a different direction totally. But
I agree.
The initial stuff was so like like fucking mind blowing.
Clarity, I thought was brilliant. I
Yeah.
remember I got to talk to at that show, at the Wayne Firehouse show. Remember, I've been a smoker my entire life. It's more than it's probably the worst thing about me. And anyways, I remember they weren't letting anyone go outside and come back in. So I knew one of the guys that was working the door. Their guitarist Tom was sitting in what was the band room, which was just basically a quarter of that room roped off. He was sitting outside, and I walked out there to have a cigarette. And I specifically remember going up to him and saying, dude, I just have to let you know that Clarity is absolutely, at that time I thought, and still to this day it holds up. It was one of the most brilliant albums. Like, it blew me the fuck away.
Yeah. I heard a rumor that they actually funded it themselves.
I wouldn't put it past that, but then again, it was on a major label, wasn't it?
Well,
it was on Capitol.
It got picked up.
Well, they were on, no, Static Prevails was on Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And cause they got on that because of fucking band. It wasn't like Chamberlain or Antarctica? Was that a band? Some band that was like, they were getting courted by Columbia, and Jimmy Eat World opened for them. It's kind of like a popular story, but Capitol saw Jimmy Eat World, and then they signed him and did Static Prevails. And I think they might have done Clarity, but it was like either Clarity or Bleed American. It was one album they paid for it out of pocket and did it themselves. And they like built a studio. It was like some story about that. I don't.
Could have been Muzzle or Super Drag.
They were a second-time winner, right, with major labels, I believe.
Yeah, because the Capitol didn't want them, and
right.
Yeah, and then they were like, I forget the whole story, but it just didn't work out, and that's when they just spent their own money. Because remember, my question was going to get to was that we heard of them because Alan Rappaport worked at Flipside Records in Pompton Lakes, and that's how we would find our music, and that's how we found Static Prevails. So I think he had told us that story, but there's a very long way around to say, like, thinking about Alan presenting us with Static Prevails and you talking about that, Scott, like, what was like your go-to, and we'll jump into the scene a lot, but like, what was like your go-to like music store? Just for some reason, I just feel like that's the direction I want to take this in right now.
I don't know. I had two. Believe it or not, Crazy Rhythms in Montclair was actually kind of cool. You could find some pretty neat stuff there, but the other one would be Sound Exchange. I mean, Sound Exchange was...
Sound Exchange is...
Damn.
Yeah. I think it's still there.
Still there. It's still there. That big, mean guy still works sitting up. He'd sit out, on his stool above the entire store.
Yep.
And if he saw anybody walking around, like, either not buying or walking around with like a pen and paper or now their phone and stuff, he would like freak out. Yeah. He was just this mountain of a guy, and he's still there, I believe. I saw him a few years ago. I know I did.
I lucked out over there. I bought a Metallica Ride the Lightning on Megaforce. Now, if anybody knows, that they were on Elektra at that point, so there was like only maybe 300 pressings on Megaforce, and I have one of them. I bought it for $8. I was so happy.
What's that go for now? Was that like?
I have no idea. I never looked into it, but I'm sure that
I'm sure it's worth something.
If you're a Metallica fan,
sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
If you're a Metallica fan, that it's a good capture.
I think the one thing I remember about Sound Exchange is the smell of that place. It was like the dirty carpet, but the plastic that all the CDs were in, and then the T-shirts in the back of how awful they smelled.
You know how many of those T-shirts I bought over the years? Oh my God! That's the first place I got my. That's where I got my Dead Kennedys. In
really?
God We Trust. Yeah.
Really?
Incorporated shirt. Yeah. I got a bunch of shirts in there. Holy crap!
I always wanted to buy a shirt from there because my dad lived down the street in Packneck Lake, and then me and Chris, who was in Landmeyer, and our buddy Bob, we would walk up there and get Taco Bell.
Wait. I'm sorry, but I gotta say this. Landmeyer, what the hell was his name? The goofy. Name the guys in Landmeyer because I know him right away when you say it. It was Bob, right?
Which guy?
You mean Rob Reiner?
Rob Reiner?
Yeah.
Rob Reiner. No, Rob Reiner.
Oh my God! Yeah, I love that kid.
He's awesome.
He was so much fun.
Well, that makes sense too. This is jumping around, but like when he joined Humble, I thought like Humble would play with you guys a lot.
Yeah.
And Red Rover.
Yep.
And like they had that show where they dressed as M&Ms.
Yeah.
I know you guys played that show.
Oh my God. Dude, you're really the dust is coming out my ears right now. That shit I haven't thought of in years. My God.
But like, I mean,
God.
it's hard to forget like a band just dressing up like, especially Josh, who fronted Humble, like getting in a
Who had
costume
every
like that.
known allergy known to man. I remember that. He was allergic to everything, that kid. He was just one big, like, just Kleenex. Like, he was just, his nose, his face was always beet red.
Yeah.
And his nose was always dripping and shit. I always felt so bad, but I was like, dude, you have such a unique voice
Yeah.
because of that.
It's awesome.
I think you're just neurotic.
Talk about suffering for your art. Yeah. Wow.
All right, so I jumped all over the place, but okay, you guys, you said you were starting to you talked about like the '90s and stuff like that, and you would just show up. So, what was like the first show that you went to that you remember?
Wow. It would probably. Well, are you talking about like a scene show, right?
Yeah, like because I don't think you answered the question of you started going to shows prior to being in a band. Or
Yeah, no, I didn't. No, I was in a band, and it would be Dharma Boys. I joined in '96. Prior to that, I didn't really go to shows, to be honest with you. I wasn't really a big show goer kind of guy. But once I was in a band, we were playing shows. I was obviously checking out other bands when we were playing, and I'm like, oh wow, these guys are pretty good. Or a lot of bands. You may catch on to this, but there's a lot of bands who are just they just care about playing and not caring about the scene or the other bands that are playing, and you'll see them kind of like hide away in their van or whatever the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
I never did that. I always, if I'm not just bullshitting with people walking around and saying goofy things just to crack a laugh, I would check out the bands, and a lot of them were so impressive. There was one band that was so good, and no one – it's like the band that no one saw. They were from Reno, Nevada, called the Bicycle Project.
Oh, my God. You bought that T-shirt. I remember you
Yeah,
just
I
wouldn't shut
love
up
them.
about
They
it.
were
Yeah.
so good. But anyway, the first band – I don't know, man. I have to really dig back the pages of the archives of my life. Honestly, I don't remember, but I think it was at the Melody Bar.
Oh, wow.
Remember that?
Hoboken.
Yeah. No,
No,
it's not Hoboken.
New Brunswick.
New
Maxwell's.
Brunswick.
Yeah.
Sorry. What am I thinking of?
Maxwell's you're thinking of Hoboken.
Or Love Sexy.
No, Love Sexy. Yeah,
Love
that's it.
Sexy. What the fuck is
Yeah,
that?
it's just how it sounds.
Oh, the record store, right?
No. Love Sexy was a bar in Hoboken. It was it was a dingy dive in a corner. In fact, it was right next to the police station, which made it even funnier. But I think most of the Dharma Boys shows started there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of shows. Vargas was our
John
guy.
Vargas.
Yeah, John Vargas was the guy who would book us for everything because he loved us, but he didn't know what bill to put us on because our style of music didn't fit other bands that played there, which were not great, to be honest with you.
What do you mean?
The other bands that played there that I remember, I don't remember seeing any good bands at Love
Oh my
Sexy.
God, no. We were the youngest guys at that time actually
Yeah.
doing that. It wasn't like it wasn't a place you would actually go to really to see a show unless you were like family or friends.
Uh-huh.
You wouldn't just walk in there and be like, "There's this great band playing tonight."
Yeah.
That's just not what it was all about. It was a dive where you made a few bucks and you could basically get better at playing as a band.
I feel like there were some bands back then that they would just play Legion Hall shows. Like we were a band and we would just play Legion Halls, and then eventually we did clubs. But I think like prior to like the Legion Hall scene really blowing up, but there were some bands that just did clubs, like Pipeline or this fucking place that I've never heard of before, or the Melody Bar, which is like the size of a closet. Like, was that kind of like your beginning, like you guys playing shows? Did you do a majority at clubs, or was it like a mix?
We definitely started at clubs first.
Yeah.
We actually stepped into the scene afterwards, which it was kind of I think it was Anthony that discovered. Anthony was more grounded towards the scene style music, and we kind of evolved into it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I wasn't really, it wasn't my first step.
Yeah, like you guys didn't have like a very punk sound, I thought. Like you guys were more musical.
Yeah,
but
more rock.
we were
Yeah,
more rock.
that's it.
I felt more like catchy too, I guess. We focused a lot on those harmonies. Like that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I could say for the harmonies, Anthony was just, he was magical when it came to harmonies.
Great ear.
In the early stages of the Dharma Boys, I was actually terrible at harmonies. I was not a good singer. It was Clarity, the album Clarity. Dino brought it. He goes, when you can do this, you're good. And it's exactly what he said. So I studied the album and I developed my harmonies from there on.
100%. Once you said that, I thought of the very first song on Clarity because it's like five
Yeah.
harmonies or something, and then there's the chorus, the sweep the dirty stairs, where it's like he holds that note. I just remember driving. I think to this day I still do it. Like I'll hear it and I'll like
He goes to the
pick
Lucky
harmony.
Denver Man.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
like, but I remember like picking one of those harmonies and singing it back then because that was also, you're right, like if that was an album that kind of taught you, if you were singing in a band, what harmonies were or how to do falsetto.
Right.
That's wild, man. That's so
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, that's a
It
true
was
statement.
it was literally where I developed my ear, for pitch and correction and everything.
So, start going.
No, I was gonna say from there on, obviously we honed in, but where I really developed my skill from pitch, harmony, notation, everything that has to do with musical anything, was recording here at the studio.
Well,
That
yeah.
when you're dealing with so many bands, you hear instruments so many times. I just kind of like became embedded in my head, and I would avoid using auto-tune to manually correct people who were wrong.
Because you'd hear that like share wave, right?
I hated auto-tune. I really did. One time I had a band come in and they laid down tracks. I would say the name of the band, but I don't even remember them, to be honest with you. I really don't, because the lead singer was such a prick. Listen to this. The band came in and I recorded their drums. They were very pleased. They loved the way I recorded the drum sounds. They were really happy. Then I recorded the bass and guitars. They were very pleased with that as well. And then the singer came in to do his part. And, there's certain singers out there, not all of them, but there's certain singers who just feel like they are the kings, like, you got to treat them like gold. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't come to my place with that attitude. And it's not going to happen unless you deserve it, unless you are like pitch perfect Pavarotti kind of shit.
Yeah, but even if you have that, like you can't be that. You can't.
Right.
It's like you can know it, but you can't express it, right?
Right.
It's like,
So
yeah, lead singer syndrome.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So he waltzes in with his beautiful girlfriend. She was very, very pretty. And, she's sitting quietly in a corner with a big old smile, and he's singing, and I'm like chuckling in my head. So he comes in and he goes, I think that was a take. And I go, really? Okay. Do you want to just do a safety take? And he goes, no, man, that was it. That was on. And I'm like, all right, let's go take a listen to it. And so we're playing it back. And I'm like, you hear this note? Here, let me fix that really quick. He goes, no, man, it was right on. I fix it anyway. And every time I fix something, this was great. It was like pinnacle moment in my life. His girlfriend would turn around like, wow, that sounds so much better. And he turns redder and redder and redder. And I'm telling you,
Oh my God.
it only lasted, I only did about 20 to 30 minutes of fixing his voice manually, so it didn't sound way off, and if it did, I was like, look, just do this line again. We didn't even finish the song. He walked out. He's like, I'm sorry, we're gonna go to another studio, I'm sorry.
Oh my God, really?
And then I would get phone calls from the other guys. He goes, I don't know what happened, man, but I just want to say thank you. You really did really good for us, whatever. It was just one of those moments where I called it out, and I don't care. Like, I'm not here to please you. I'm here to help you.
But was this recently or was this like back then?
Oh, so my recording studio started in '99. Basically, geez, there's so much to go with here.
Dude,
So
you were the only one who had the right amount of equipment with the right microphones who could actually do it at a fair price for everyone. And all these bands we had been playing with for a while and who needed demos and whatnot, and helped them all out. You know, he didn't rape any of them with his
No.
prices, you know, and he had good equipment. You'd get a great sounding demo out of here.
Well, real quick too, anyone listening, it's Hinchcraft Studios, which is still in Haledon.
Halden.
I know.
North Halden.
I know.
North Halden.
That was like the joke from before. I was bringing it back. bring it
Real
back
quick.
around.
I do have a doctor's appointment. I was
Oh.
telling Aunt I do. I texted you like
That's funny
2 hours
because we
ago.
used to call him the doctor.
There you go.
Do you have any last notes before you leave?
Other than Mike, thank you very much. This was an awesome trip down memory lane.
Yeah, man.
But how long are you guys going to be going on? Because I mean,
6 hours.
That's about right. No, I'm probably
I'm
like
just saying because
I
yeah,
usually
'cause-
try to talk. I mean, we're about 40 minutes in. I usually talk for like an hour, hour and a half. It really depends on like where the conversation goes. So it's usually
you're
you know.
talking to Antonio. You realize how long you may be talking.
Oh, trust me. I mean, I don't plan on doing this today, but I talked to Brian Granick for his interview. We talked for 3 hours because we were also like catching up from the past.
That's
And,
wild.
Yeah,
That's
so that was like a marathon of conversation. So
But Mike, thanks so much for having me.
yeah,
I
dude, I'm
appreciate
glad you got a chance to be on, man.
I guess I'll do a little bit of a spiel on how Hinchcraft Studios started.
Yeah, and like when did it start though? Like what was the exact like year?
Okay. So in 1999, I just started looking around at my equipment, and you know, Scott was right about this. I had accumulated equipment over time, not brand new stuff. I didn't have money just like anybody else. You know, you kind of scrap up whatever you get. And I've been known to collect things. Now, Jay Vix will make a great joke on that, but I collect things. You know, if someone's throwing something out, hey, I'll take it and see what I could do with it. If I can't, then I'll throw it out too. But for the most part, when it came with musical equipment, you know, I would have like very old equipment, some not so old, some fairly new, you know, just stuff.
Yeah.
And we, as Dharma Boys, we recorded with this other guy in Kearney. I'm not going to say his name because he'll find us and he'll start complaining that we complained. I don't care, but whatever. The guy was he was just. I mean, he did well. He recorded okay, but he was trying to become producer at the same time. And anytime we mentioned something, he would stop the tape and be like, "Excuse me, who's the producer here? Okay, I'm mixing." And I'm like, "But we're telling you what we want. Like that's the band's decision. You don't just decide things. You could suggest."
Right.
So I took it personal. I was like, you know, I'm never coming back to this guy. And so we looked around for other studios, and they're all expensive. They were all expensive. And I'm like, you know what? This is bullshit. No one could afford this. You know, we talk about $50 an hour, $75, $100 an hour. Come on, man. You know, if you're if you're a startup band, you're just in high school or whatever, you know, or if you're just a decent musician on the side and you don't want to spend the money. So I started looking around. I'm like, well, I don't have audio equipment like that expensive. I don't have a 16-track recorder. What can I do? And so I looked into it. I did have a computer. It was a Pentium 2. It was a, you know, slow old bastard, but functional. Windows 98. I had a CFX, a Mackie CFX 16 mixing board. It's a live board. It's not even, it's not a, you know, whatever. It's just a live board. And a built-in sound card. So with software that I found online, and at that time I was all about finding cracked software.
Yeah.
I collected every single one of them, you know. I got to doodle around to this and that, and I was using Sony at the time SoundForge Vegas. That's what it started out to be, SoundForge. And so, you know, at first I just did a couple of recordings on my own, tested it out. And then I did a couple of local recordings, you know, from a couple of people from Franklin Lakes, no one anybody's ever heard of. They were just like real low key locals. Anyway, I got to know the software enough where I felt confident. Where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna make this a business to open up the floodgates for people to record. So when I started recording people, I was charging, this is going to sound stupid, but I was only charging $10 an hour.
Wow.
Which is less than a rehearsal studio.
Yeah.
My point to that was I'm doing it out of my house. I have no overhead. I have all the equipment. I know I owe nothing. So it's time. You're paying for my time. And I figured if I'm working at a store, if I got $10 an hour back in 99, that was a pretty good pay.
How long would it take you to record, let's say, I'm guessing, would bands come in with a full length or an EP?
For the most part, it's always EPs. I've only done maybe a handful of full lengths, to be honest with you. I don't I have to think about that. No one has ever asked me that. But it's mostly
It sounds about right though, EPs, because you're
yeah,
right, that is their beginning.
it was always between 1 and 6 songs that were recorded, and not for any other reason, but that's the material they had.
Right.
It was because they couldn't afford it, clearly. Well, when the word got out in the scene that I was only charging $10 an hour to record a band, you might as well I might as well have been paying people to come in, because it came in droves. Like, everyone went nuts at first. I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There was too many bands coming in, and I was doing 3 bands a day. I was like, oh man, maybe I should start charging a little more. I don't know. Honestly, my earlier stuff, I did okay quality wise. I was still in the learning curve, but at that price, everyone was tolerant. Like, if I, something, I erased a track by accident. Sorry, man. Can you do it again? Yeah, no problem. Who cares? It's $10 an hour. It didn't matter. It's like, and I had such a low key vibe here where it was one of my key factors. I didn't want you to feel intimidated when you came in to my studio. I wanted you to feel like you're doing it at your house, and it worked. It made everybody very comfortable.
Well, how long, like, what was your process though? And I'm gonna jump back and forth between like this and like doing shows and like miking, do the sound of shows and doing the band. But like, because when you're starting off, I mean, that's obviously a learning curve, and then they're gonna come in and pay $10 and be lenient about stuff. But there's typical processes. You lay down drums, you do bass, you do rhythm, you do lead, and you do vocals, and then harmonies. So did you do it that structure, doing the $10 an hour, or did you go live sessions?
I
Oh
did.
wow, Jesus.
So what happened was, again, in the early stages, again, Pentium 2, Windows 98, there's a lot of factors of probability, like problems. Using the sound card, I mean, as stupid as it sounds, I would have an 1/8-inch jack, like a stereo headphone jack, going to a 1/4-inch jack of my live board, which meant I had to get the drum tracks down right, because I only had 2 tracks to work with.
Oh wow.
Right. So miking was a serious issue. You had to mic it properly. You had to mix it properly right out of the gate. Like, you had to.
So
That
what
was
you
your
have?
shot.
What was that though? Did you have just like the snare mic'd and then a room mic for the rest of the kit?
No, I would mic everything, as normal, but it would be going to an 8-channel live board. So it's as if you were playing a show, and you have the guy saying, all right, kick, drum, snare, this, same thing, except now I'm recording it.
And it's all coming to one track. So if there's an off,
track, yeah.
yeah, if anything's off, then you can't mute it or like go back and
No.
redo it. Oh, Jesus.
Yep.
Who were some of the bands that were your first clients?
I see, this is the part where I'm not prepared to say, because there's so many.
Yeah.
I recorded over 200 bands.
Wow.
I have books of, like, my schedule books, and if I start skimming through them, I could tell you.
Holy shit.
But one of the earlier bands would be Stillwell.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know
Yeah,
Stillwell?
I know Justin.
Doug.
Justin Sherwood. Wasn't he in the band?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking of something else. Yeah, Justin.
And Kelly,
and,
was Kelly the drummer?
Kelly, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because
she was phenomenal. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Phenomenal drummer. She still is, I'm sure. I was so impressed with her. I hands down one of the great drummers that came through here.
Yeah, I've always heard that she was amazing. And I remember when Barker started Day at the Fair, Justin, Kelly, CJ, like they were the band, and I think in Heiner too. Like they left Stillwell, and then CJ had left Red Rover, and then they did Day at the Fair. But then like I think CJ, Kelly, and Justin went off and did their own thing and kind of like left Chris in the dust.
Oops.
Yeah, and then they did their own thing. But yeah, Justin grew up in Jefferson. That's why I know him.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. His older brother actually took my sister to the prom.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how I think I met. Yeah, that's how I knew him. Um, yep. So Stillwell, yeah, but so that sounds like they were like a 2001 band, right? 2000, 2001.
Yeah, that's roughly when I opened up the doors. When I really started was around early 2001.
So did you? So then this time you're playing the Dharma Boys. You guys are playing shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the recording studio starts in '99. At what point you start doing like sound for shows?
Ironically, I never recorded Dharma Boys.
I was gonna ask you. I was like, did you record
Yeah,
any of your
we did
stuff then?
not record. I only did, the first stages. I only did like real local, unknown people. Like, hey, yeah, I just heard you got to record. It wasn't really. It didn't open up to the scene until 2001.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like I guess playing shows got
Yeah.
the word went around too because then you'd be playing shows and somebody like, oh, hey, I heard you guys have a recording studio, or you could even say that on the mic or something or whatever. It was just
Yeah.
good promotion.
It honestly it started when I was in Copper Pot. That's when it really took off. And it was kind of a challenge because during that time, we played a lot of shows, and then, we started touring. And right around 2004, 2005, when we were really hitting pavement out there, it was difficult to keep schedules. So I kind of like lost a lot of. It's basically the demise of my business was just not being around.
Well,
You know.
yeah, you have to be. I mean, you can't do that remote unless you have someone working for your studio, which I think
No.
if you're charging $10 an hour, you really can't be paying someone a salary or
I
giving them
moved it up
like
to yeah, I moved it up to 25 at one point and stayed there. I didn't go any further than that. I thought 25 was a fair price at that point.
that's pretty
$10
fair.
was like at the very early stages, and then I moved it to 25.
Well, did you when you did that? And I am gonna jump back into the sound guy for shows thing, but when you went to 25, did you have kind of an inner struggle since your mission statement was to the $10 an hour? It was a clear statement of why you're doing that.
No, I've actually had bands tell me I was charging too little.
Well, duh, yeah.
And there's like, and I took that as like a surprise. I was surprised by it. I was like, really? Okay, I guess. And they thought it was fair that I should get more because I was offering so much to them. Like if they wanted suggestions, and that was again going back to what I was saying before. I had a lot of suggestions to bands. You could do this, you could do that if you wanted to. And I would show them, try this for a second and then go back to what you're doing, because I wanted to stay humble to the band's what's the word, what they want to do basically.
Their vision or
And
whatever.
yeah, I don't want to interfere. That was my biggest fear, was to have an interference with the band. I wanted to be a part of it for that time.
Yeah.
So
No, that's pretty good. And I mean, like I think that's good to have like a clear vision of that. Plus, at the same time, I think you being in a band could help you like stay that course, I guess. Like
yeah. Well,
and respect it.
one of the things that surprised me, and I wish Scott was here for this one, the drummers that would come in, I had to tune all the drum sets. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't mean like a little fine tuning. I mean like, what were you thinking when you played these things? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. None of them. No, I don't know any drummers from back then, except for maybe like Del Vecchio and
Yeah.
Sean, who's a lamer. Like I don't think he really knew how to tune his drums either, and he'll probably kill me if he hears that. But yeah, it was always like no one knew that shit. I mean, you would know that you had to tune your guitar, your bass,
Yeah.
and then the next step down would be singing, and then vocals potentially would just be hit or miss, and you can get away with it. But drumming, I don't even think it was on anyone's fucking radar that you had to do that
Yeah.
or could do
Yeah.
that.
Right. So and then when it came to sounds, I love being experimental. I had a lot of cracked software, so I wanted to try. Hey, you want to try the special effect? Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing! They go crazy. It was great. So I was very experimental with the bands, of course, with their blessings, of course. I had a lot of old equipment, so sometimes to give it a crazy effect, like I had a rotor phaser, which is similar to like a Leslie speaker. And I used it numerous times with a lot of bands, a lot of guitarists that just loved the way it sounded. It was whirly.
So you're doing all three things. You're playing in a band, you're recording, you're doing sound. I mean, the sound thing, you basically can only do that on, majority would be weekends, right?
Yeah, well, the sound thing again, that came about for the same reason. Why did I do sound? Well, I've acquired equipment. I used to work for a DJ company, and they would sell off really nice equipment that were, in their eyes, outdated. In my eyes, amazing. Like these tall JBL SR series speakers. I got them for like dirt, amplifiers, whatnot. After collecting everything and having a van, I just put it out there to anybody putting out shows. I'm like, hey, look, I'll do sound. And again, I was only charging stupid cheap, like $150. It was like nothing. But that was the point. The point wasn't, I'm ripping myself off or I'm not getting it. The point is to make it happen. That was why I did everything. It was to make it happen because some people just can't afford it. And I'm one of them. And so I know the deal, So when I did acquire all the equipment, I made it happen. And it was my contribution to the scene, basically.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. And also wanted to point out that your most lucrative project was doing sound, because if you're doing a 5-hour show, you're getting $150, and you're recording an album for, I don't know, an EP for like 10 hours
20.
at minimum, 20 hours definitely. So that's only $200 for 20 hours of your time. And you're not getting paid shit to be in a band.
Right. Exactly.
You're not
Yeah.
making any money doing that. But that's like the most, I would think that's the most, I would
But
say
I
that's the most fun, but you might think
Yeah,
it's different.
you're
So.
right. It was the thing is I kept myself above water. I did make money. I was based on volume, consistency. There was always a show. There was always somebody who wanted to record, and I thrived off of that. That was fantastic. But I did it humbly, I didn't want to go any further with charges or anything like that. I kept it real,
Yeah. I mean, like, was that like your full-time life? Did you have
Yeah.
another job too, or just all three of those things was your income?
At that time, that's all it took.
Damn. And where were you living? You were in Halden?
In North Halden.
So have you been in the same house since back then?
Yeah.
Wow. This is so the house you're in right now and the studio you're in is the same spot you were in 2000 or 99.
Yeah, I've been here forever.
Holy shit. That's wild,
man.
man. Do you have like pictures and stuff up in the studio from like bands from back then or like albums that you recorded?
Absolutely. I could definitely I could send you some pictures.
Yeah, definitely do. Like I could post them on the Instagram. So what's your full-time gig now? Just to kind of just presently.
So switching gears completely, probably one of my specialties is that I dabble in everything, and I sometimes go in head first without questioning. And one of them was this job that I currently have at the moment. I saw a bus drive by, and I'm in my car, and there's an advertisement that says, full time, full benefits, blah, 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 drive a bus. So I signed up. I went online, I saw New Jersey Transit, filled out the application, and thought nothing of it, to be honest with you. I'm like, they're never going to call me, whatever. Like, they got 1,000 people working, when they're going to need me. And then COVID hit. And sometime around July, I get the phone call. Yeah, you filled out an application to drive a bus. I'm like, I did. How'd you know? I don't know. It was 2 years ago.
Holy shit.
It was 2 years ago. So I did it on a whim, and they called me. Now, as you know, as everyone knows, when COVID hit, it created such job losses. And, I lost about 3 of my fumbling jobs that I had. So, which I was a limo driver for a limo company, and that was cool. And I worked for another company, like a Quest Diagnostics, and I would like shuttle around blood, which is kind of cool. So, I would always just pick jobs, whatever comes my way. I don't question them. I just take them. And so I took this one, and, stepping into becoming a bus operator without a license, it's like, you're super fresh. So I went through their training program and got my license, and that's what I do now.
So are you like driving? We're not going to say this for the whole time, but like, are you driving into the city, into Jersey, or what are you just around Jersey or the city?
It's always into the city. It always goes into Port Authority. But I have about 15 routes that can be as far as Warwick, New York, and it could be as close as Secaucus. There's many routes that starting points are like all over the place of northern New Jersey. Like Clifton, Wayne, Patterson, West Milford. It's everywhere, and I go into the city at least 5 times a day.
See, like I feel anytime I go home or go to Jersey and drive around, I like one of the reasons I left is because I just like I got a divorce and I was like I can't see the same things over and over again because my memories are attached to this shit. But there's good spots where anytime I drive into the city, if I look at diners, we were talking about them before, or the exits off of 280 that would lead to the West Orange, like Legion Hall. It's like I always still, when I drive by that, see that and remember that time. It's like always. Do
Oh
you
yeah.
like, and I asked this a couple interviews ago, where how much does someone still think about that time? For like you're driving by all this stuff, and this might be a stretch, but you're driving by this all the time, and like you sometimes, I mean, everyone's driving, their mind's gonna wander, but like, do you still like kind of go into the city and think of old times, like, oh man, I used to take the tunnel to go and play this club, or I just passed by that diner and I remember like sitting there, like, does that ever go into your mind, or is that just like so far in the past that you'll only think about that like right now because we're talking about it?
I'll be honest with you, I never think about it ever.
It's amazing.
I'm pretty good with tuning out my past, and not forcefully. I'm always looking to the future. I'm always looking to what to do next. I try not to lean on the past very much.
I love that.
And the reason why is because I think that's what I wrote something on Facebook, and I kind of want to read it now because it was like a perfect line. But there's something to be said about when you lean on your past. Like, it's great to remember things. It really is.
Yeah.
And I love that. I really do. But there's some people who lean on it. Like, that's all they care about. Like, they don't care about the future. They just care about what they've done.
Right.
But that's the end. That's when it's the end. You don't want that. That's a tombstone.
Yeah, it's funny too because it's like me coming in through this podcast about that time. It's like it is leaning on it, but I'm a very forward thinker and like future
Right.
thinker. So this thing is more of a time capsule. This is like
yeah,
fresh.
this is more time capsule, but it's also like it recaptures the history of it. This is a total. That's not, I hope you don't take that.
I did
as
not
a
take it.
dig.
No. I did not take it negatively at all. But I know exactly what you're talking about because but like when you said that, I was like, it did make me think like, man, am I like fucking living in the past? I was like, no, I think it's different. If I was like, because I've brought up my band plenty of times, and I remember someone posted something recently. They're like, I like listening to this, but this guy just fucking talks about his old band all the time. And I read that, I was like, shit, maybe I should stop doing that. But I was like, ah, fuck that guy. And but
That's awesome.
there's a point where it's cool to reminisce, and it's cool to look at things and be happy about it and not go, oh man, I wish I could go back. Like that's the shit that I am like, no, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be 17 and sitting in a diner and being like, that's where I want to be now. It's just being like, oh man, I remember when I dated that girl and that's where we like made out that one time, or I was like, oh, it was like the first time I was in love was there, or this is the diner we went to after that show and I got to talk to so many people and that's how we all connected, and like that's what I love. But I don't go, man, my life has been shit since then.
Right. I mean, one of the things I love when bands do reunions. Unfortunately, not all bands do it well. There's certain bands that just don't cut it right. You know what I mean? It's like, you did it great back then. Maybe you shouldn't do it ever again.
I'm gonna put you in the spot. You have to answer it, but like I've seen a bunch of reunions and I've never been disappointed, except when I saw Quicksand and they were a 3-piece because the guitar player, got arrested at CVS for like
Mhm.
stealing or something like that before it was like true story. And I was so bummed when they showed up in North Carolina and they're playing. I was like, I've waited 20 years to see you guys, and you're a three-piece, and it doesn't work as a three-piece. So I was like really bummed. Um, but everyone else I saw, like, who do you know any bands like you'd want to say recently, or like, or in the last couple
Yeah.
of years? And they were like, ugh.
Well, the one band for sure was, and I'm such a huge fan, American Football.
Oh yeah, I never really got into him, but I like Owen, but I never remember.
Owen's good, yeah, but American Football, I don't know. They're amazing. The intricacy of it's such mathematics into their playing. Well, anyway, they kind of reunited last year, I think it was.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I didn't go to the show, and I'm so glad I didn't, because when I saw the YouTube playbacks, I'm like, oh my God, no, no, don't, no. It's like it ruins the moment. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't know. I'm not saying that they're not talented; they still are, but it's like almost like a cover band doing it or something. You know, it's not exactly the same, and it's not what you expect.
Well, it's not the same. It's
I
not the
don't
same
know.
energy that when they wrote the album with, so they can't really bring that. But some people they get together, and someone said this recently where they're like, yeah, you get to. The good thing is that you've got 10 years or 20 years under your belt of getting better at your instrument. So when you bring that on stage, you're going to be that much better. I was like, I never thought about that. For the people who can stay consistently, but then the people like who haven't played in years, they pick it up, and you're like, oh, you're probably just as good or you're worse than you were.
There's a lot of bands where I'd love to see play again. You know, I mean, right off the top of my head, Penfold, fantastic band.
Did you see Brian play acoustic in the Quarantunes that Jay was putting on?
I, I did not.
Yeah, it was dope.
Oh wow, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I think you can. I think the videos are still in the group. Like you could look up videos now, it would pop up and just scrub. But yeah, he played. I think his like family was visiting family or something. This was, all of them had been done during COVID and something. But he had his apartment to himself, so he's just like drinking like some margarita drink, and he was just like playing acoustic and singing the songs, and he just still owned it. I was like,
Ah, that's wonderful, man.
yeah,
That is cool.
yeah. What other? So just real. What other band? Like, what would be one more band that you'd want to see?
Live.
Yeah.
We're talking about scene bands, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like a scene band from
Okay.
back then, or like I
Um,
mean, American football. They were in the scene, but they were like outside of the
yeah,
Jersey scene.
yeah,
So
that doesn't, it kind of doesn't count.
I know. I think it
Um,
can. No, I'm saying like I think that does count. I think it could
okay.
be the blanket could be a little bit broader than New Jersey.
You know, that, that's a great question. I think I have too many bands in my head that I've enjoyed, and I think one of them, I would have to say Shady View Terrace.
Interesting.
Shady View Terrace isn't my style of music, but they put on a show. You know, they were great. They were fantastic. It's not my style of music, but I enjoyed them quite a bit.
Yeah, I just interviewed Paul actually. Who was they? I asked him if they were going to do a reunion, and
Oh wow.
he's like, I think I caught wind that there might be a conversation. He's like, but I wasn't part of it, so I don't 100% know. I was like, oh, next question.
That's awesome. Well, they were very popular in the local area. You know, they were good.
Yeah, actually, I have a picture up in from the group that it's you guys playing. Well, the reason I brought this up, like one, I just wanted to say like there's a photo of you guys in the Jersey Pop Punk group of you guys playing. It's like this black and white, and you're jumping up in the air. And then someone at the bottom, it just says it's funny. So Scott Wyden-Kivowitz, he put just reunion exclamation point. And I just thought it was so funny that you just talked about that, and this is the only photo of you guys, and someone's like saying that. And that comment was holy shit. That comment's from 11 years ago.
Oh wow. Wow.
Wow. Holy shit. When was this picture posted? Yep. Oh, you posted it in January 14th, 2009. That's when this group
Oh,
started.
okay. That I love that
Wow.
shot.
Holy fuck. That's awesome.
I It was one of the things I loved doing was jumping off my amp at shows. I had to stop doing that because in 2003, I was notorious for a little bit of parkour myself, and I
Okay.
was jumping off of when I was in the Copper Pot, we had a school bus a short bus. Took out the S and H and we called it Cool Bus. And one time I was down the shore actually, just hanging out with a bunch of friends, and I started just jumping around, and I jumped off the bus, and I would have been fine if I landed on flat ground, but I didn't. One foot landed on a sidewalk.
Oh, no.
There was a puddle in between, so I like spread my legs a little further, and it did not end well. And so that was the last jump I ever did.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no good.
Ow.
No good.
Fuck.
So yeah, I don't do that anymore. But in this time in my life, I shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I don't think any of us should be doing that, especially parkour. So like for the band and like for you guys, yeah, because we talked about it before, and I was like, yeah, you guys didn't have like a punk, like it was a rock sound. And how did you feel that you guys fit into the scene with the sound that might have been a little bit different than all the other pop punk and ska and all that shit going on around you?
Great question. I have to figure out, is it Dharma Boys or Copperpot?
So Dharma Boys. Copperpot, you guys had like I listened to some of that too, and that was catchy. I mean, not saying that Dharma Boys was catchy, but it was like a different sound. It was very Fountains of Wayne like sounding, yeah. So that would have been, I felt, plugged in more, and then Dharma Boys was more rock. So like, how did you feel that you guys were perceived?
Okay, so with Dharma Boys, it's kind of ironic because when we went into the scene, we thought we were more geared towards the style of the scene. We had that notion. We didn't feel like, we were different, but it was quite the opposite. Going into the scene has a different sound. It's more, post-punk, pop, punk, hardcore, little bit of everything. It was a big mishmash depending on what band played that day.
Yeah.
We didn't sound like any of those bands, but we played on those bills because, we didn't know where else to play at the time, I guess, except for bars, and we were sick of playing at bars. And so as far as the music writing went, the earlier stuff wasn't like that. Like the much earlier stuff was it almost sounded like 80s rock. It was pretty bad. But then midway, we were pretty much in tune. I think with the album, with that song you heard, Linden Flower, I think that was kind of like when we were going in that direction of more rock, indie rock style. And it was Anthony, the lead singer, Anthony Natal. He basically introduced us to the scene. He was more into it than anyone. He was more grounded to it. He knew about all these different bands and different styles, and we were introduced to that. So, I kind of like snowballed into that idea. Like, oh, well, this is pretty cool. This is different. And, the writing style by that time, it switched up a little bit more towards it, but not entirely. And I think people just had they had an, how can I say, they were very humble about accepting us. We weren't exactly like the rest of the groups, but people liked us. It was different, and I think that was the key point. Is that it's okay to be exactly, or play the way you normally play and not succumb to another style just because. And I think that was our specialty. Is we stood our ground and we played well. And I don't know, it was just about being fun. We had a lot of fun playing these shows, really.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. I remember before about saying you were like the mayor. Because I just remember I always saw you walking around, and then I did forget that you were doing sound. So yeah, like you would be present. You couldn't be hiding in a van, like you couldn't be hiding in a back room.
No.
You'd have to be doing the sound. You're walking around, making, setting up the mics, setting up for the end of the band. But I was just like, remember you just like walking around talking to people. So it's funny that, you guys get in the scene and you have your own sound, but then like you walking around, like you just being presented to this where Anthony was the one who introduced you. I feel like you took it and ran with it though.
You could say that.
Personally.
Definitely. As Scott would say, I'm a social butterfly, and
totally.
What would happen was it was technically my way of just nonchalantly advertising, hey, I'm chit chatting with anybody, and then, hey, by the way, we're going to be playing. I'm in a band. We're playing next, so come check us out. And I would just nicely ask people. I don't know, it was a thing to do, and that's what one of the things I used to do in Copperpot, and this is probably no one will ever understand why I did this, but I did it, and I don't care. I would get if we used to play at the Bloomfield Ave Cafe.
Yep.
And 2 doors down was this little Jamaican food place, like a Jamaican restaurant kind of thing. And they used to make ginger tea, like real ginger. They cut up pieces of ginger, boil it, and that was ginger tea. And I used to love it, and I would drink a serious tall, it was like literally like a 40-ounce glass of this stuff. Well, with that said, I did probably the most dumbest thing I could ever do. Now thinking about like today's standards, I would go up to anybody and be like, "Here, taste this." Not kidding. I would let people taste, and I'm like, I can't even count how many people did. It would taste, and they'd be like, it's punchy. This is real ginger. I don't know if you ever had real ginger tea, but it sets you back a bit. Like, whoa, punches you in the mouth. And that would be my starting conversation. Then I would like kind of tumble into, hey, I'm in a band, I'm going to be playing. And people would stick around and check you out. It was just, I wanted to be connected with people, and I didn't want to exclude anyone. I didn't pick anyone. I would pick everyone. And especially at like shows, I'd see like little cliques hanging out outside, and I would go up and talk to them because, sometimes people just feel disconnected and like, oh, I'm here, but I don't know why. And I always like to have people feel comfortable in where they are, and I guess I played a role in that where maybe I felt like the mayor of the scene. I don't know.
No, I totally get it, man. Yeah, I think, I can imagine. I'm just envisioning the people that did go there and they heard about this cool thing to check out and they did go solo, or maybe it was to meet someone. Either whatever way they were there by themselves, or they would be quiet, or they might have stepped out from their friends and they're smoking a cigarette and not talking to anybody. But like there is that, like I can relate, because if I have a party, I always tell my friends now, like I love throwing parties because I hate walking into a party and people just ignore you, or the host just doesn't introduce you to people. Like you feel so non-comfortable. So if anyone comes into my house, which would be, you could put that anywhere. If I'm going to be somewhere I want to be comfortable, like I like knowing everyone where I can walk up to anybody and be like, "Hey, how are you?" Like make them feel that way.
Right.
So I could, it's like totally connect with what you're saying, and that's amazing. I think at the same time it's like you also, I think personalizing the band, because so many people have talked about they were like, I felt like these people on stage were us, and it made me think that I wanted to be in a band because it felt personal. But then, so that was that part. But then the extra step is when they actually talk to you. It's like you just made you more connected to that band. It's almost like when, this is a little bit different, but like Rocket from the Crypt, they used to, when they first started playing shows, they would show up with lyric sheets and give them to the crowd. So it was like, how do we connect? How do we get rid of this gap between us and build like a bridge here somehow?
Well, I could tell you this, though. The only setback that this created in my band in Copperpot.
You got the flu a lot.
Was no, but because I did what I did, the lead singer didn't really like how I was developing communication with people. In fact, he used to talk me out of it. He'd be like, you shouldn't do that. That's not rock, man. That's not cool that you're associating with people directly. You have to be more like, I'm better than you kind of attitude. I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Oh,
no,
wow.
no. I'm like, you don't get it, man. This is how they're people, man. I mean, they're humans. You associate with them. They're part of, if they're going to be your fans, you have to be with them. You can't be above them. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. So whenever we played shows and I did just that, like moving around, telling people, hey, check us out. If you haven't heard of us, this is our band. You might like it. Just stick around. Well, towards the end of like 2 or 3 songs, there would be more crowd towards me because they associated with me, and there's yelling my name, and the lead singer got pissed. He's like, what the hell, man? I'm the front guy. Why is everybody looking at him? And so it created tension between us, and I didn't like that, So in the latter of the band before I quit, I would be very low key, low profile, wouldn't say anything, won't do anything. I was a typical, like, a hired bass player at that point. And I hated it. And I'm like, this ain't me. This ain't it.
Well, why'd you do that though? Like, why did you change gears? Like, before you quit, like, why did you decide to make a shift and stop talking to people?
It was based on him complaining. And he was really bad about it. He would call me a social predator instead of like a socialite. It's like,
wow.
Why would you say that? Yeah, he was jealous. It would have boiled down to it. He was very jealous of how I was connected with everyone. And I didn't do it for any other reason but just, being cool with people. Like, I don't care if I ever see someone again or if I see them every single day. I think it's great then. You know what I mean? It wasn't the point. The point is just being nice where you are.
Well, it's interesting because you've brought up Copperpot. Like, you'll talk about that a little bit more than the Dharma Boys, and I also want to figure out, like, find out how you guys officially broke up Dharma Boys. But it sounded like you had a bit more of a connection to Copperpot because you've brought it up. But then it sounds like that ended poorly.
Well, it did. So with the Dharma Boys is Scott, Anthony, and Dino. And to be honest with you, we were a band, but we were more than a band. We were friends, and we truly trusted each other. Like, there was no, how can I say? It was more than a band. It was more than, like, it was like family, basically. Like, we had our inside jokes. We got each other. We never ever had not even close to an argument, like not even remotely. Everything was fun. It was always in a laughing manner. We just joked about everything. The Dharma Boys was pure fun. And, we were serious about our music. We did what we did, and we took it seriously, and it was fun. It was still fun. Like, there was no crossfire or anything like that. It was never even remotely. It just never happened. When the Dharma Boys broke up, it was mainly based on what's kind of hard for me to say because I didn't do it. Like, me and Scott were kind of like dumbfounded when it happened. It was mainly the other two guys, and it was for kind of a good reason. It was basically like, we held this torch for this long. It's not really moving anywhere. We're just going to let it go. And in my eyes, it was like, well, are you kidding me? Like, this is like the best right now is the time to carry the torch, out of all times. It was 2001, and it was actually early 2001. It was like, he said, yeah, it was May it happened. April, May, it was around that time we broke up. But music was doing very well. The scene was doing pretty well. And we were just getting our foot into it at that point. Like, well, technically, so to speak. But we were, getting well known at that point, which is good. So, they had career pivoting points, and they had to pursue that. And that's, we honored that. We accepted it. And it was like, okay, well, that really sucks. So me and Scott were really bummed. And that is how, basically what happened was, Scott knew a girl named Jackie who was a hairstylist, and her boyfriend is a guitar player. And she's like, well, he plays guitar. Maybe you could start a band with him. So we jammed out with him, and it turned out he is an incredible guitarist. I mean, I want to say he's probably the best guitarist I know. One of the best. He really is. And I don't say like he's not like a flashy guitarist. He's just so solid. Like, he's the kind of guy where you could throw anything at him and he'll play it right. Like, it's just amazing. Anyway, so we jammed out with him, and that was cool. We're like, oh, this is working out. We could do something here. And I'm trying to remember how his name is Mike Reed, by the way. Mike Reed is the guitarist. And so I'm trying to remember how Jarrett got into the picture. I want to say,
And Jared's the lead singer for
yeah,
Copperpot.
I think it was Scott Kivowitz actually who introduced. I think it was. He came down to audition with us, and he brought his songs, and he says, can you learn these songs before I come down? It was like 3 or 4 songs, and quite frankly, those early songs sounded very. The best thing I could say is Radio Disney.
Okay.
They were straight up pop music. It wasn't rock. It was pop. And, me, Scott, and Mike are kind of looking at each other like, well, we can do it, but I don't know. So we kind of stuck to the gun for a little while because we didn't really have a direction at the moment. We didn't give everything a shot. So we played a couple of shows with those songs. We got together and we basically formed the band, and it worked out okay. But it was really, I felt, I'm not kidding when I tell you, the early stages of Copperpot, I felt very awkward playing shows because it was pop, flat out pop, and you're at a scene show, and not everybody liked it, and I didn't. I agreed with them. I'm like, well, it's not like I don't like it. No, you know what I mean? It's like it's not this. It's just not in. You're in another department of Macy's. It's totally different. So, it developed. Basically, we went more towards that rock sound, and that's right around when Bleed American came out, and we started gearing around that style. We started playing a little more like that, and that's when we started to pick up a little bit more, people noticing us more. It started to pick up quite a bit.
Going from Dharma Boys and all of a sudden, just you're the guy. You're showing up. Everyone knows that you were in Dharma Boys, and then you're in Copperpot. How quick was that transition from the band Dharma Boys ending, and then you guys playing your first show as Copperpot?
It was crazy quick. I mean, if you can imagine.
Like months? Like 2 months? 6
Yeah,
months?
literally, because the band, so Dharma Boys technically broke up in April. I think Scott got that screwed up. It was April. So by May was a big breakup. Like we just didn't do anything in May. Me and Scott kind of just looked at each other. What are we gonna do? So it was right around June. Yeah, I want to say June.
Wow.
I think it was June when it started, and we played. Yeah, in fact, yes. And what happened was, now it's coming back to me. We actually played a major show as Copperpot. In California, there's another place called the Knitting Factory, and it was a brand new one. And there was a show that's called the International Pop Overthrow. It's a really long name, IPO, and kind of like the scene, that's a scene in itself. It's all like pop style music. It's another genre altogether. It not like pop like Britney Spears, but kind of like in the style of like what Phil Spector would perform, or produce, I should say.
Okay.
So a lot of that is out there. So this band as Copperpot fit the bill actually very, very well. And we played this show, which was pretty big. We played in, I don't even know how many people we played in front of, but it was packed. It must have been at least 2,000 people.
Jesus.
We were not ready for it because, we just started the band.
Wow.
And it was good. It was a really good show. They loved us out there. It was really interesting to play out there. Yeah, we played in other states quite often after that. And so I guess the transition was very, very quick, but again, it wasn't like, there was no animosity or any ill will or what am I not, I'm saying the wrong words. There was no jealousy from the other two members of Dharma Boys. They were more than happy to see us continue because I think that was more of a burden on them thinking we're letting these two guys down. So for us to pick up and jump so fast that we did, it was just a transitional blessing.
I think I was thinking more of the lines of you being attached to Dharma Boys when the crowd saw you play in this band 2 months later. they all of a sudden they're like, wait, what the fuck? Like, what's this band? And then you're on stage like, huh, like, yeah, here's this Disney sound thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is exactly right. Because with Dharma Boys, my energy was 110%. You know, I basically followed the footsteps of Flea. I was all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, because you're jumping off shit and you're like having a blast. And then this thing, you're trying to meet people and then you're getting subdued eventually. Like, I could see why you're like fucking bummed out.
Yeah, you know, and then, 2002, 2003, we switched up more towards rock. You know, we started getting involved in the writing segments. And so, it was almost like a blend between Dharma Boys and Copperpot. And at some point, Mike Reed actually left the band right around that time, and Anthony Natal, the original singer of Dharma Boys, jumped in to fill in, and he stayed in, and that was our lineup, which made it was a super connection. It was great between me, Scott, and Anthony. It was post Dharma Boys kind of thing, but Jarrett definitely was holding the reins on the band, and he was very controlling. I didn't like the way he handled things.
Well, is he still playing? Because I'm on the Facebook page, and I remember
Yeah.
earlier in the interview, Scott said, "Oh, that must be," because I had mentioned all those other albums, and Scott was like, "Oh, that must have been the other guys." So I didn't put two and two together. Well, I mean, obviously that point, I was like, "Oh, okay." Like they at some point they parted ways, but it seems like he's still doing
He's
it.
doing it. Yeah. I'll be honest with you, I don't keep up with him at all. When I cut somebody off, severely. I have no ties to him whatsoever at this point. I never will. I don't want to ever see the guy. Like he was more damaging mentally than he was worth.
Damn. I think sometime again, like I don't know the dude. I'm not talking shit about him, but like I think sometimes people just have a vision. I think too, and you kind of hit on it too earlier when you were talking about the guy that you were interviewing or that you were recording, and he didn't want to hear it. I think sometimes there's like a mixture of you have a vision. Granted, if you're recording and it's off key, like that's not really a vision. That's just like pure ego. Like you
Right.
don't know your fucking shit.
Yep.
Um,
That's exactly it.
yeah, and
Stay
it's
humble.
yeah, man. I mean, you can even watch, and this is a giant stretch, but I mean, if it's like you watch the Foo Fighters documentary, granted, big difference between
Hmm.
him and the singer from Copperpot, but like sometimes people just go on this quest and they're like, I just fucking did this. So it's always interesting that there's two sides, but yeah, I mean, sometimes sometimes people just like they don't do shit well, let's say, of
Yeah.
try to sell someone else on their vision. Put it that way. And it could just be very along the lines. Everyone's like, fuck that person. And you're like, all right. Yeah.
That's exactly it. It came down to it where it was obvious that I was a pawn in this band, and basically all the band members were pawns, and they figured it out later on. Mike was the first one to get it, and yeah, I contributed so much to the band. I lost a lot of money to the band. I'm very bitter about it, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know of any of this until right now. Like I'm like legit learning this on the spot. Like I knew of the band and I wanted to focus on Dharma Boys. So I didn't know. Like, so I hope that I didn't bring something up where you didn't want to talk about it.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
This is the first I'm talking about it, so no one knows. Basically, you're discovering something no one knows.
So like after that, and then at the same time, because that was a weird transition of time in general, where we're coming out of the Jersey scene. We all like the people that I'm talking to, or myself personally, like had a really good time. Early 2000s comes around. It's just the scene itself starts to just dissolve in Jersey, or it just changes into this new sound that's starting to develop. So like for you, this is the second time it didn't work out. The scene's changing.
Right.
Not sure where you were. Like I know for some people were going into their 20s, they're in their 20s, and they were trying to think about, shit, I need to get a job. Like, what were the factors that were going on after you left the band that were like, I'm not doing music. I'm not going to play in a band again?
That's a great question. Again, things shift. So it was 2005 when I left the band. I forgot exactly what month, to be honest with you. I literally put down my bass. I put down the bass. I didn't pick it up for the next 3 years, I think. I wouldn't pick up an instrument. I just didn't care. And I'm not the only one. Anthony Natal, same thing. He put down his instrument for a very long time. I think he even disassociated everyone with music. He just basically said, I'm not talking to anybody about music. Scott, his drum set is long forgotten in some garage in Pennsylvania. Like, he just put it down. And we all love music. I mean, it's the nature of our beast. I mean, but the way things went down with Copperpot made us so miserable with music. It was like, I don't know how to put it. It was very used. You know what I mean? It was,
Yeah.
I felt we all felt used. And it's not only the singer, but it's also the industry in itself, and I'm not trying to downplay anything, but I think that's the beauty of indie, is that it's yours, man. If you're playing an indie scene show, if you're playing at a VFW, it's all about what you just did,
Yeah.
You don't owe anything to anybody. You don't have a contract where you have deadlines or anything like that. And it's crazy because we all have that dream that, in the future, you're going to be picked up by a label and it's going to be awesome. It's probably the worst thing that could ever happen, to be honest with you. I don't like labels at all. That's just me.
Yeah, you hear horror stories. I don't think I've ever heard a lot of people saying that they're like, oh, this was the best thing when we got this major label or this label. Like, it seems like it never showed up the way they wanted it to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between something you independently want to do and then something you contractually have to do. It's just hard to vision that when you're not in the know.
I think the only label that that's a very giant statement, but I think a label that exists that people loved being on is like Asian Man. Like, I feel like he kind of got it and gave people the freedom. So there was labels like that, but then, I mean,
Jade Tree Records was a good one.
Jade Tree, really?
Mm-hmm.
I never I wanted to talk to those guys. I never got the full scope of what it was like to be on that label. But I mean, Lifetime did 2 records and they broke up, and I forget who else. There was like a bunch of bands on there. I never heard anything bad about that label, I guess. But I didn't really hear anything except for the bands they put out, which I really only remember Lifetime. But I was like, well, they must be great because Lifetime I fucking loved.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
They're a great fucking band.
Of course.
At what point did you close the door on like doing sound at shows and recording bands?
Well, I think that just kind of fell into its own place. I mean, it wasn't me stopping; it stopped. I would have done it every single day of the rest of my life if that was the case. I loved it. It was one of my favorite things to do. But it dwindled. It's just like anything else. Basically, what happened was, I think just music styles that entertain kids in schools have developed in a different direction, and rock is not one of them, or indie or pop, any of that. It went towards, I guess, rap and trap music. So, in this day and age, at least. But at the time, let's see, I was out of the game by 2006. I just gave up all of it.
It's a long time to still be in it like that. I can't imagine that. Like, gives me anxiety that you stayed in it that long. I mean, those seem like the dark ages to me, like 2000s, like the mid and like that whole time period. I'm like, how the fuck did anyone stick with this shit there in that time?
Well, I mean, that was another thing, is that I was old. I was known as like the older guy in the scene, at all times. Like, oh my God, he's like 28 years old. Man, that's old. Which maybe it is. I don't know. But like at some point, everyone turns 28. So
we used to say that about Sean. Sean was like 24 and we were 18. We're like, my God, this guy is so old. He's like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, age is a funny number. Age is a funny number. That's funny.
Age is a funny number. It kind of makes sense actually. Like
Yeah,
I think it does depend on. Well, I mean, like the boxcar guys, they were like I think they were older dudes too, but
sure.
yeah, I mean, there's like a certain point though where I don't know. It's like it's. I think it's silly that people expected the scene to last a long time because nothing really
Well, you got to remember how
stays that long.
independent it is, and I mean,
Yes.
some scene shows. I know for a fact there's some scene shows were literally held like completely controlled by 15-year-olds. Mind blowing.
It's
Like a
yeah.
15-year-old booked the hall and put on these bands and put out, like the flyers. And that's, man, kudos to those kids because that's what made it all happen.
Yeah, I mean, Gaslight Anthem, like Benny, who's the drummer
Hmm.
in Gaslight, he
Yeah.
used to do a ton of shows at Manville Elks Lodge back then. I don't know if you were doing sound for any of his shows or anything like that, but yeah, he was 15 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old, doing shows at an
I,
Elks
I
Lodge.
I definitely have done at least one or two shows around there. I've done every Elks Lodge, every VFW. I've been there. I can't name one I haven't been to. I even discovered one in West Patterson. That was a good one. It didn't really take off though, but it was a good spot.
Yeah, it was like a mix back then of how to get your bands to play. Either you would do shows yourself and then put your band on the bill, or you'd be like the sound guy. And you'd be like, "Hey, we can. This is our way to get people in instead of just calling up. That was definitely a very strategic way
Yeah.
for bands to get on shows,
Oh,
which
absolutely.
people talked about.
So, yeah, I guess, being involved in everything, it made it a little bit easier for my bands to jump in.
Did you want when you were in these bands, like, did you have this vision of I want us in whichever band you were in to get to this level of playing giant shows and touring with giant bands or being the giant band whose people are touring with?
At the time when you're in a band, in any band, you always have that vision. It's inevitable. I mean, the whole point you know, of stardom is to jump to the top. It's the whole point. But in hindsight, it doesn't make any sense. Like I wouldn't want that now. Like if I were to turn back the clocks, I'd be very happy exactly where I was with the amount of people that showed. Like to me, that was more than enough. Now,
Yeah.
at the time, I was definitely geared for. I thought at some point, man, I got to be playing Giant Stadium at some point. I have to. It's just in my blood. And it was. It really was. It still is in a way, but it's when you understand the music industry better, especially how broken it is now,
Yeah.
on so many levels, it is impossible. It's a giant ocean of music out there and a lot of sharks, a lot of sharks. And so it's crazy, the idea, the dream, it's fantastic, but sometimes dreams are better than reality.
Totally, man. I could say I just thought of the metaphor of like for me growing up in high school, I would always see the cutest girl or hottest girl and think, man, that must be the best. If I dated her, life would be the greatest thing ever. And I'm guessing the people that might have dated that person, they might have been like, no, it's really not that great. She kind of knows she's hot and she sucks.
That's it, exactly it. It's just that it's funny how when you're younger you have a different perspective, you have a different outlook, and you have different ideas, and it's all good. I mean, the whole point of that is ambition, which is a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, cool,
you
man.
know, but right now I'm in a band, and again, I think this band is as close as it gets to the compassion, the camaraderie of Dharma Boys. I'm in the band called Reality Suite, and my drummer Brian King is a longtime friend. I've known him just as long as I known Scott, basically, since grade school. So we've actually created a band together way back then, jamming out. And it was just literally like the White Stripes. I was playing guitar, he's playing drums, and we wrote in our garage basically 6 albums.
What?
It was amazing. Well, not you have to understand in grade school
Oh,
quality.
oh, okay. But this is recent though.
No. This is in grade school.
Oh,
That's what I'm
this
talking about.
legit is grade school. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
We wrote like 6 albums on cassette. It was
Oh,
awesome.
I totally misheard that. I was like recently. I was like, holy shit, dude.
No, but actually we have 2 albums and an EP at the moment, and we're working on a song. In fact, we're releasing that song coming January, I believe, or February, probably February. And it is on the most professional level I've ever been in a band. So Brian King drums, Joe Padula on guitar. Joe and Brian have known each other for quite some time. They played since high school. And then we found Kimmy. Kimmy is our singer, and we have a lot of songs on YouTube. Great videos on there. One to check out, maybe "Kiss the Ring" and "Grave." Those are great videos. And we should have a couple new ones coming up. But getting back to the current band has that vibe that I had with Dharma Boys, where it's like very family centered. Like we really trust each other. We really like each other a lot. We don't have arguments. It's fun. It's pure fun, and it's very, in a way, it's sophisticated, level now. As far as the music quality, we really jumped up quite a bit. But it's great.
Real quick, Joe Padula. I just Facebooked. I was like, that name sounds familiar, and I'm scrolling down and I'm seeing Patent Pending. Was he the singer in Patent Pending?
No, it might be somebody else.
No, I think it's no, because they're like I'm friends with the. Well, he just has patent. Maybe he was just like showing Patent Pending, but his Facebook icons him on like a mixing board or something.
No,
Okay.
That's definitely not.
Okay,
It might be
it's a
him
like
with his
different
kids or
person.
something.
Wait, Joe Padula. Why does that sound so fucking familiar?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, he was another band called Fly Me Courageous, but I don't think you would know that.
Wait, how do you spell his name?
Padula.
Joe Padula. It just sounds.
If you look on my Facebook, you'll probably see. Well, actually, if you go on realitysweet.com, you'll be okay.
realitysweet.com.
That would probably be the best way.
Wait, it's not Reality Suite. REALITY Suite.
It's SUITE. Suite, like hotel suite.
Oh, okay. There we go. I was like, wait, how am I spelling this wrong? Sweet. Yeah, I'll have to figure that. I didn't. That name just sounds so familiar, and I feel like this is like a person that knows me, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, asshole, it's me," and I'll be like, "Oh my god, I'm old. I'm sorry. My memory's shit."
That's funny.
That's cool,
So-
man. That you're fucking.
Yeah, I should probably
you know
bring
that.
back how that started.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned before, when I left Copperpot, I put down the bass for some time, and during that time, actually, John Randall called me up, says, "Hey, there's a position open for you at a studio in New York City. It's an advertising firm, and would you like to try it?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." So I went in there. He worked there as well, and I worked at Gray Advertising for some time, from 2006 to 2009, and it was great, because it was a solid gig. So again, walking away from what things dwindled opened another door. So I did that for some time, and then 2009, it was like the Great Depression, basically. Everybody got canned.
Yeah.
And I was one of them. And then right around that time, around 2009, I was talking to Brian, my good friend, and he says, "Hey, listen, we're gonna, me and a couple of guys, we're gonna have a little jam if you want to, jump in." And I'm like, I don't know, I don't really play bass anymore. And he's like, "Oh, what the hell? Just give it a shot."
I don't really touch the axe these days.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't touch it. So we gathered up at my place, and it was literally like firing up an old Model T Ford. It's like it could sit for 100 years, and all you have to do is crank it up, and it runs. And that's exactly how I felt. It's like I just jumped right back in, man. I'm like, oh man, this is fun. Oh, this is great. This is good. And so it was me, Brian, Joe, and a singer. His name's Lance. He didn't really fit the bill exactly in the same direction that we were jamming out to. So we kind of like, we're thanks, but no thanks. But then we started looking for other singers, and we did. We had a couple other singers, and for some reason, it just felt right to have a female singer, female front singer. It just, I don't know, it just sit well with the music that we were creating, and we were just writing music literally on the fly. Like that first day, we wrote 6 songs right on
Wow.
the spot. So it was magical. It was like, well, with me and Brian, we've known each other so long. We've known each other more than we haven't, And so playing together, it's kind of like, I could be blindfolded and he could hold the wheel and drive the car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was that kind of connection that we have. So, and we still do. We have that. So that was how I fell back into playing bass again. It's funny because currently I have a good set of equipment and I don't record bands anymore.
Yeah, I'm like looking at the photos. I'm on your Facebook page and I'm looking at you, like the style. You guys look like just like a rock band. You're all wearing black. She's like in like leather. Dude, your singer's fucking hot.
Yeah, I
Good
know.
Christ.
She gets it all the time. She's beautiful.
But like the look of like you guys have this big light set up behind you. This is like a production.
Yeah, like I said, it's the most sophisticated band I've been in at this point.
Wow.
But at the same time, we're all very humble. We're very down to earth. We're not. None of us have an ego at all. We all just get along and have a good time.
What's like the mission statement for the band?
Yeah.
No, like what is like
Oh,
like I mean maybe that was it. Like
man,
just
rock
having fun.
on. I don't
Just
know.
rock.
I
No,
never
like do you
thought of
guys have
that.
like a vision? I'm gonna say vision. Like where do you just be like we just wanna when shit opens up again, just be able to
Yeah.
play shows and that's it. Like just show up on a Saturday or a Friday, play, and then we're like, all right, when's the next one?
Well, I mean, again, it's getting back to what I said before. I mean, ultimately, it's like anybody else's idea is to, just get as many fans as you can and put on a great show and just enjoy it, put out good music so people get it.
Yeah.
Should that put us in a direction of playing in front of a lot of people? That would be great. But in my personal opinion, I'd rather not get signed on a major record label because I don't like what they do, especially now. I think that they're hiding under their tables. Ever since the word MP3 came out, they were hiding under their tables. Sales really plummeted after Napster came out, but it's not about them. That's the point.
I've interviewed a few labels and I've asked them when Napster came out, what was their take on it, and some of them were like, "Oh yeah, it was just the total downfall." And then Mike Park from Asian Man, he's like, "I love it." He goes, "Think about it. If you have a CD of a band, you're gonna put it in. That one song, you'll hear it a couple times, and you have other CDs you never listen to." It's like, but that one song can be played millions of times over and over again. I was like, interesting. I never thought of it like that. Even though you make like a half of like a hundredth of a penny or whatever it is on the stream, but
Well, Napster, of course, was free at the time. We're talking from like, I don't know, 97 to like 2002, I guess, 2003. Napster was the precursor to Facebook when it comes to shareability and learning what people have and what they because it was basically like, hey, what songs do you have on your computer? Oh, download it. Here it is. That was the kind of craze that happened, and I could see how that really ripped the sales on CDs. I mean, if you're not selling CDs, then you're not selling music because at the time there was no digital way to sell until iTunes came out. And even with iTunes was only geared for the people who did have a record label. It was their surrogate answer. And that's fine, but it didn't really change anything for anybody who is unsigned.
yeah, it's a weird. Even if I see bands now that are like trying to get big in this, even especially now, but like I'm always just confused. Like this is just purely passion. But if you think you're gonna make millions, I mean the SoundCloud rappers and shit, I think they do actually make money. Like the Lils, all the Lils.
Yeah, well, the reason why is because That's mathematics. The less amount of people that it's involved in the creation, the more money goes towards one person, rather than a split. It's why you don't have orchestras anymore, because who can afford 65 people?
Yeah, it's crazy. So one question before, actually two questions before I wrap it up. One, what's the biggest, well, this is three. What's the biggest show that you've played with Reality Suite?
If you look at our YouTube, you'll see it. It's the Keswick Theater. That was fantastic. We opened up for Rat. I know.
Fuck
It's
out of
like,
here.
what?
That's amazing. Wait, I'm on your website. Is it?
I don't know how many people were there. I want to say maybe 3,000, 4,000 people. I don't know.
Okay,
It was,
so that kind of answers the other question. Is like I mean, I know you said you did that with Copperpot. You played in front of like 2,000 people right when you started the
that was
band.
that was a
But
one-time
like
shot.
getting like having that, because that some bands have been like, man, the pinnacle would be to play at Roseland. If Roseland's even around? But like playing to a packed whatever gigantic club that's in New York City. For me back in the day, it was like Roseland or Starland down in Sayreville. Like getting up there and doing that one time, or it'd be like, okay, cool, I did that. I don't need to do that all the time, or like I know that I'm not gonna do it all the time, but that was cool. Or somehow going on a weekend trip with a band or a week tour with a band, and they have a bus, and you got to sleep in the bunks and actually experience that little snippet of what you're told. Like, do you think that you playing that show to 3,000-4,000 people, right? Like, did that kind of suffice the appetite of I've always wanted to do that and I fucking did it. That's cool. We don't have to do this all the time.
That's a great question. It's really hard to say, because it's like, I want to say it's equivalent to somebody handing you $100 for nothing. If it happens once, it's great.
That's a great metaphor. That's a
But
really good fucking metaphor.
but if it happens like, more than 5 or 6 times after that, then you start to expect and you want more. It's like it changes the gears a little bit. I'm not shunning away. Like if I have the opportunity to play larger venues, more people, absolutely I'm gonna go for it. The difference is I don't have that strive for that. I don't say to myself, man, everything I'm doing in my life is geared for 30,000 people. No, I don't do that. Now it's like I just want to write good music, have good timepieces, and if people enjoy it, people like us, and they start following us, fantastic, man. That's so cool, and I appreciate that ever so much. But I don't expect it. I never expect it.
That's the answer. That's what I was looking for. Like, not looking for, like, I hope he says this, but that's what I was kind of like leaning towards. Like, do you want this all the time? And you're like, because you keep saying we have such a good rapport, we're doing it right, we're all having a blast. That other stuff starts to really fog the vision. And if you're like, cool, we got to do this and this is great. Yeah, it would happen again, sure. But I'm not showing up for that to happen all the fucking time, because that's going to
Right.
make this a business, and that's where shit goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So before I wrap this up, is there anything, because I know a bunch of people, when I ask them to do this, they start just researching. They're like, man, I got to pick my brain about shit. And then I'll talk to, like, when we're done, they'll hit me up and like, oh man, I forgot about this story. And I used to say this, but I stopped. But was there something in like talking to Scott, or like, you're like, we gotta at least tell this story, and we gotta remember to say that. Is there anything like that that's top of mind?
No, there's too
You're like,
many.
nope. Oh, there's
There's too many, and I don't know which way to go with that. But I do want to say that I probably didn't talk much enough about Hinchcraft Studios and the bands that I did record. One of the bands that I really loved to record, and I thought came out the best out of my studio, would be Welcome Home Travis.
Yep.
Paris. I loved Paris. They were great. They were a Wayne-based band.
Okay.
And the sounds came out fantastic with them. There's another band that I recorded. They were from, I think they were from Bronx. Yeah, they were from the Bronx, and they were called, oh, nuts. How am I blanking out here? There's so many bands. Geez. They were, I had a problem with them though. They were great. They did a fantastic job, and they pushed my envelopes quite a bit. Like, they made me really try harder. I guess that's the better. Like, oh, you could do better than this. Oh, you could do, like, I never had a band say that to me.
Interesting.
They were pushy, and but not in a mean way. They were funny about it. They were actually a funny band. I made a mistake though. I lent out my bus to them for them to like travel, and they went to like Virginia. And I'm like, what could possibly go wrong? Well, anyway, I got a bill in the mail from the fire department in Virginia, and it had something to do with like they backed into a gas pipe, like a gas line.
What?
And it costed me like $500. I'm like, dude, what the hell is this? Right? And they brought back the van, like they didn't know how to drive it right or something. It was a diesel van. When it came back, it was black. It would look like the inside of a chimney. It was terrible. I was like, what'd you do to this thing, man? What the hell's wrong with you? The thing I didn't like about the band was that they only paid a third of the bill. I was pretty lenient with payments because for the most part, everybody had to, scrape up money and whatnot. So, it was kind of like pay when you can. And they took full advantage of that because they owed me like close to $2,000, and they only paid like $300.
Holy shit!
I took a hit on that one.
Oh my god!
And I tried chasing them down. They were just nowhere to be found. So it does happen. It was the only time it happened, really.
That took so many directions there. You're like, I like the record. They pushed my buttons, but they were funny about it. They fucked up my bus, and then they fucked me with money. I was like, wow, that just kept going south. Like after that.
But they were so good though that I almost like overrode that. I was like, I don't know. They were really, really good. One of my most consistent clients, I should say, is Neil Sabatino from Fairmont.
Yeah.
I did a lot of work with him. We definitely butted heads many times because I had suggestions, like I said, and of course I don't force him down on anybody, but he would always get mad when I suggested anything. But it was fun working with Neil anyway. I mean, I loved working with him. It was good. It could just be trying with him. That's all. We had differences.
It's funny because he bought like 3 months, not 3 months, like 3 spots for sponsorship for this thing.
Oh, awesome.
And January is his next one, his third one. And I think your interview is going to come out in January. So he'll ask me like what interviews are coming up. I'll be like, oh, I got the interview that you got to be in front of. Definitely.
Neil. No, Neil was great, man. He did well. I liked it. It wasn't my style of music, but I worked with him. Like I wanted to make sure that I captured exactly what he wanted, and I guess that's where my suggestions may have failed because, it wasn't in the same direction as his, which is fine. It was okay, but I loved working with him. He was a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah. I interviewed him like, I don't know, 30 episodes ago, 20 episodes ago, like maybe a little bit sooner, but yeah, I've talked to him before. He was a good conversation.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, I will let you go, but 2 questions before I close this up. Even though I think you kind of covered it. Before I ask the last question, what would you like to plug?
Come record at Henchcraft Studio. No, I'm like kidding. You know what the funny thing is? I don't even know if I would. If someone wanted to record with me now, I would do it, but it would be at my pace, because now I have a full-time job. I don't have the time, honestly. I don't think I would do it. You know what? I wouldn't do it. Screw it.
I like it. Solid no.
Plug.
Could be for you or could be for somebody else if you
Yeah.
want to throw them some love.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for obvious reasons, I would say, it may not be scene music, but my band, I love the band I'm in, realitysuite.com, check out the YouTubes. I think that would be my first plug.
Okay.
Other ones, I wasn't prepared for that. I don't have anything in mind, honestly.
So that's all it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any
I would
like
say just my band. That's all.
okay, and it's Reality Suite. It's Suite,
TE,
not
yeah.
sweet like sweet as in the taste, but like a room, a
Hmm.
suite, a nice room. That's what I was fucking up when I was doing the domain name. All right, man. The last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Helping people on and off stage. It's something that has fallen quite a bit, and as far as I'm concerned, when I play shows now, I, I don't know, maybe it's just a different type of scene, but if someone's about to get on this before my band or after my band, and I'm done with like if I've had to move something of my bandmates or mine, I help the other band. Like I get up there and hey, you need a hand. And if they say, yeah, that's cool, or no, then whatever. But it's something that bugs me about like a lot of these shows nowadays. I guess because we play more like bar like venues or such like that. But bands don't help bands, and I think that was something that I remember when I was doing sound for shows. I remember bands helping each other out, moving stuff because it was just workflow. It was like let's make it happen quicker. It wasn't about like this is mine and this is yours and you take care of your stuff. It I don't know. It didn't have that effect. I don't remember that. You know.